At 2:45 in the morning, August 6, 1945, Colonel Tibbets takes the Enola Gay down the runway into the air, beginning the 6.5-hour flight to Japan.
In fact, as the Enola Gay took off, plans for X-Day had not been abandoned altogether. There was a collective holding of breath. Would the bomb work? What effect would it have? Would the mass civilian casualties in Hiroshima produce the unconditional surrender demanded by the Allies?
As they approach the target area, the weapon is checked for the last time. At 9:11, 31,000 feet over Hiroshima, the Enola Gay begins the bomb run.
On August 6, 1945, President Truman was on his way back from the Potsdam Conference on board the SS Augusta when the news came through of the bombing of Hiroshima.
At 9:15, the bomb is dropped. The aircraft banks away at high speed. Just 50 seconds later, 15 miles from ground zero, the Enola Gay is rocked by the blast.
Crossing the Atlantic, President Truman announced...
Truman spoke to the American people about this momentous event.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. It was to spare the Japanese people from utter destruction that the ultimatum of July the 26th was issued at Potsdam. Their leaders promptly rejected that ultimatum. If they do not now accept our terms, they may expect a rain of ruin from the air, the like of which has never been seen on this earth.
It was a uranium bomb called Little Boy by its creators, which destroyed Hiroshima. It came without warning, detonating 1,900 feet above the city. The center of the explosion reached 5,400 degrees Fahrenheit. There were massive civilian casualties.
This was Hiroshima, completely leveled 4 square miles, constituting 60% of the city. The greatest man-made disaster in the history of the world.
Black smoke was rising. Gradually, the sky was getting brighter. Then I could stand up, and I found that Hiroshima town had disappeared, and my house was crushed. Nearby, I saw the fire. In just a couple of minutes, the fire had burnt out the whole town. I remember my mother was under the house. I called Mother, and she replied, "Here I am." I tried to dig her out. It was difficult to reach her. I couldn't reach her. I told her the fire was coming very fast, and she told me to run away, so I did. She was praying. Probably she had decided to die. One nuclear bomb crushed the whole of Hiroshima, creating a hell.
America had chosen the targets for the atomic bomb to maximize its psychological impact. A purely military target would diminish this effect.
The reason that it was dropped on a city was for its shock value. The atomic bomb did not do anything that the conventional bombs hadn't been doing since late in 1944. That is, destroy lots of buildings and kill lots of people. The advantage of the atomic bomb was that you did this with a single bomb, and that in itself, it was hoped, would shock the Japanese government into surrender.
Hiroshima demonstrated its deadly effect. On August 6th, the city was destroyed. 140,000 Japanese were killed or would be dead from burns and radiation by the end of the year. for American troops camped on the island of Guam, who had been training hard and awaiting the order to invade Japan, the news of the atomic bomb was cause for celebration.
We knew we would be alive. We knew that the war was over, and that was what the celebration was. We did not have to go to Japan. They had parties for the officers. Our company was selected to be the waiters. I never forgot it, because our guys were walking to the edge of the chain link fence, and then over would come a bottle of rye, over a bottle of scotch. So we had a bunch of nice big bottles of booze out of that officers' party.
I thought it was the best thing that could have happened. It saved thousands and thousands of lives. I didn't look forward to all the Japanese who were being killed. All we were thinking about was to end the war. Because if we went to Japan, we would have been fighting door to door.
I know what some people are going to think. Gee whiz, do you realize all the people that were killed? Yeah, but that didn't stick in our mind. It stuck in our mind was, boy, the war is going to be over pretty soon.
In fact, planning for X-Day continued. Its architect, General MacArthur, as enthusiastic as ever. The day after Hiroshima, Army Chief of Staff General Marshall contacted MacArthur.
Marshall, back in Washington, sends a cable to MacArthur saying, do you still want to go on with it? People are saying, well, the war's over, namely the European war. We can wind it up with the Japanese with a little negotiations. And Marshall feels this attitude in the country that maybe they won't support an invasion, particularly an invasion which on day one is going to take out hundreds of thousands of Americans.
MacArthur replied emphatically that Operation Olympic must proceed as planned. It was sound and would be successful, he told General Marshall.
General MacArthur was simply enthralled with the notion that he would go down in history as the man who had led the greatest invasion of all time. And that view clouded his judgment on everything that would come up in 1945.
The unimaginable power of the atom. Japan to surrender or be destroyed by fleets of atomic bombers.
The successful detonation of the atomic bomb also added a potentially devastating dimension to the invasion plans. With the buildup of Japanese forces on Kyushu now becoming clear, General Marshall thought he had found a way of strengthening the X-Day landings. 9 atomic bombs to be used against Japanese defensive positions on the island.
Marshall himself clearly recognized that continuing to support an invasion of Japan was a huge problem. And you see what he's doing is he turns one of his staff officers to looking at the question of using atomic bombs as tactical weapons, which clearly indicates Marshall knew that the plan as it currently existed was a non-starter. Something radical had to be changed to keep the invasion option, at least going to Kyushu, alive.
Had the invasion gone off as planned, you would have had American troops invading through tons of radioactive material. I mean, they would have been annihilated by their own weapons.
The ponderous military power of Russia hurled against Japan. It's a two-front war now. Russian armies assailing the Japs on the mainland of Asia, while Americans and British strike against the...
3 days after Hiroshima on August 9th, Stalin fulfilled his promise at Potsdam and ordered Soviet troops into battle against the Japanese forces in China. The scale of the Soviet invasion of Manchuria was huge. 3 fronts, 1.5 million men. It had a profound effect on the Japanese high command. But would it have been sufficient to end the war without the use of the atomic bomb?
It's hard to know, but what we do know is that the first atomic bomb was used, and the Japanese military were so unimpressed that they didn't even come to the meetings that were called by the Supreme Council. It was only when the Red Army came in that the Japanese came in.
The fact that the atomic bomb was followed so quickly by the Soviet invasion of Manchuria was a dual shock, and it took both of them to convince the emperor and then his militant advisors that the time had come to surrender.